Back to Miller. Oh, my goodness.
Herbert, sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, as always, joined alongside Joe Kmetz for our Thursday night show. Last week, we did it on Saturday morning, a little bit different. But this week, Thursday night, we will be bringing you our college basketball preview of the top 10 games of the weekend on Friday and Saturday, as well as our college football playoff national title preview. We got Michigan and Washington on Monday night after two very exciting playoff games. So, Joe, a big weekend of college basketball. First real weekend of kind of like conference play. We've had some here and there, but it's a full loaded slate this weekend, a slate where it was hard to narrow the list down to 10. But we got there, and then the college football playoff title game on Monday night, the last one of the 14 playoffs. So big weekend, few days ahead. As always, Joe, welcome back, and how are we?
Coyle, as always, doing well. Thank you for having me on. This is a very good, very underrated weekend in sports. You have the last week of the NFL regular season. You have the college football national championship game, like we're going to talk about on Monday. You also have a great weekend of college basketball as well. And especially with the snow coming for those in the Northeast, it's a good weekend to sit on the couch and do nothing and just watch sports the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like that's what you're usually telling people to do every weekend as well, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but I do that a lot. So I try to spread my message to other people because it's a lot of fun.
Yep, keep the faith and spread it. All right, we're going to start with the college football playoff title game on Monday night, our preview, as we previously mentioned. Got number 2 Washington at 14-0 coming in versus number 1 Michigan, who's 14-0, 7:30 kick on ESPN. I feel like it's usually a little later. I like that earlier start time. We'll see if it actually does start then. But this one was playing down in Houston at NRG Stadium where the Texans play. Michigan's a 4.5-point favorite in the matchup, over under 55.5, Joe. When it's all said and done, who will be our national champion this year?
I believe the Michigan Wolverines will win the national championship this year. I have them winning 33-24. Exact score bet is plus 41,000. I have $1 on it to pay out $411. That'd be really nice. But I'm going with Michigan to cover the spread of 4.5, and I'm taking the over of 55.5. I just think Michigan, at the end of the day, their defense is not something Washington has faced. I give Washington a ton of credit for stepping up against Texas, and Texas so close to being back. Couldn't get it done. That game was awesome. Washington, Michael Penix is so much fun. Odunze is so much fun to watch. But I just think Michigan, the one thing we saw against Bama, Coyle, and, we were talking about it kind of in our group chat. I was talking about it with my friends. We were watching the game, just how Michigan was able to control the line of scrimmage against an SEC football team and against Alabama too, not just an SEC football team, against Alabama, a Nick Saban-led Alabama team. Incredible, incredible stuff. I think that they're going to be able to do that against Washington as well. I think Washington's offense will keep them within striking distance. I just don't think they'll be able to have enough opportunities, though, to keep up with Michigan. I think Michigan's offense will benefit from Washington's bad defense. This is kind of like a matchup nightmare for the Huskies, a team with a very good defense, and their offense can kind of build off of Washington's bad defense.
Yeah, once it gets to Monday, I'll probably wind up betting on Washington, but I do think Michigan's going to win the football game. Just have a rooting interest in it. I'll probably take Washington, though, because I do want to see them win this game. The big thing with last week, why I really like them over Texas rush defense, the best in the country, a really stout group up front, but the secondary was very vulnerable, and we saw Washington go out there and exploit that from the very beginning and have a really good day in the passing game. Michigan comes into the national championship game with the second best passing defense in the entire country, only allowing 150 points per game, 150 passing yards per game. And as we know, they're very good up front too. It can stop the run. So I think we're still going to see Washington still try to go out there and sling the ball around the yard. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to have that same success that we've seen for most of the season and definitely last week versus Texas. And I also think Michigan's just going to implement a game plan where J.J. McCarthy might not throw the football 10 times. Like, this is going to be 4-yard carry, 6-yard carry, 7-yard carry, 3-yard carry, and just slowly carry the football with those backs and McCarthy running it as well all the way down the field. Keep Penix and company off the field. So maybe the under is actually a better play in this one as Michigan tries to just really control the clock and let that defense do a lot of the work and let the running backs go to work. So I do think Michigan's going to win this game. I do think they're going to cover. I think they're too good on both sides of the ball. It's going to take some pretty special stuff from Michael Penix, but I wouldn't put it past him, Joe. I mean, what we've seen from him, especially last week, he can go out there and slice them up. But if there will there be enough chances? I don't know if Michigan's offense is going to give them enough chances in this one. I think it's going to be real ground and pound, and then we see Michigan eventually win. I'm going to go Michigan 24, Washington 17. So Michigan minus 4.5 and under 55.5. That might be my official play, the under. But come game time, I'll probably take a little bit of coin on Washington as well. Just have a rooting interest for them because I do want to see them win this game at the end of the day. But we're both going with Michigan there. And now we transition over to the hardwood. We got 2 games on Friday, 8 on Saturday. As we mentioned, a bunch of great conference games. Every game on the slate is a conference play now. So for this weekend. So we started off on Friday, Joe, with your UConn Huskies, number 4 in the country at 12-2, traveling to Hinkle Fieldhouse to play 10-4 Butler for a 6:30 tip on FS1. Haslam Metrics is projecting UConn 74, Butler 71. So we'll go UConn minus 2.5 in the over-under set at 144.5. Joe, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I like the under. It's at 144.5. I'm going to go UConn 71, Butler 68. I will take UConn minus 2.5. I'm a little bit biased, obviously, so I'm going to take UConn to cover the spread. This game terrifies me. The one good thing that I kind of feel with this game, with Klingon still being out, is that UConn has gotten 2 games under their belt without him. Yes, one of those games was DePaul. I'm not going to pretend like it was against a real world-beating team. But being in the building, watching that UConn team without Klingon still be able to function as an offense, as a team, a lot of times you see college basketball teams, if they lose their best player, they kind of just fall apart. And you could tell, like, wow, this guy really was holding up the team. Not saying that Klingon, wasn't doing stuff like that, but UConn is a very good, example of team basketball. They kind of filled in the hole. Samson Johnson is a freak of filling in that hole. He's so much fun to watch. So I'm going to go UConn here to cover that spread, win the game by 3. This is going to be one of those back and forth games. My money, I wouldn't, if I wasn't a UConn fan, I would definitely consider betting Butler first half money line. I could see this being a game. Butler's up a couple points going into the half. UConn makes them run in the second half.
I'm going to go with some Hinkle magic here on Friday night, Joe. I mean, we've seen UConn play really well in the non-conference and obviously last year in the tournament, but they have struggled a little bit in terms of conference play. That's been their main bugaboo, I guess you'd say, over these past 2 seasons now where they've struggled the most. And Butler, they're a team that they're desperate for a resume building win. This is going to be their Super Bowl, as you were kind of touching on, and it should be a great crowd there. And Butler does pull off some big time upsets, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them at all pull this one off. And the line only being 2.5, that's a little bit of a funky line for a team as good as UConn, as ranked highly as UConn. So I think the line is kind of given a little vibe there of that Butler's going to pull this one off. So I'm going to go Butler 78, UConn 75. So Butler plus 2.5 in the over of 144.5. I think that it's just going to be one of those games where they're hot shooting. The absence of Klingon, I think, is going to be a difference maker as well, as Butler doesn't really have much inside. They're not really going to be forced to deal with his presence. So I think Butler has a good chance to pull this one off and make some noise and get that big win on their resume. Second game on Friday night now, a top 10 matchup, actually. And if Terrence Shannon Jr. was playing, this would probably be the game of the weekend. I think with his absence now, this is going to be a little bit of a worse game, but still should be a pretty fun one. Number 9, Illinois at 11-2, at number 1, Purdue, who's 13-1. 8:30 tip on FS1. Purdue is projected to win 81-71. So go to Purdue minus 9.5, over under 151.5. Joe, does Purdue get the win at home here?
Yeah, I do think they're going to get the win, especially Coyle, like you were alluding to earlier. Andy Katz, I saw the tweet earlier. I don't know if you saw. He was comparing Illinois' situation to Providence's situation, where you have one player being suspended indefinitely, another player being injured for the remainder of the season. trying to say that they were similar. Like the only thing that's similar about them is that the players can't play. Two obviously very different circumstances. Um, but I just think at the end of the day, Purdue has Zach Edey. You don't. Purdue is at home. It's Mackey Arena, right? I'm not like losing my mind. Purdue
Mhm.
plays at Mackey Arena. Mackey Arena, when it gets going, this is going to be a top 10 game against an in-conference opponent. Mackey Arena is going to be rocking. I'm going Purdue pretty comfortably here, 85-72. I will take Purdue to cover that 9.5-point spread. I will take the over 151.5. I just don't know. Once again, it's kind of going to be my thing unless, God forbid, something happens to Edey or Purdue can't make a shot to save their lives. It's just I'm going to bet on Zach Edey all season long until the tournament, that is. And
Yeah, I like Purdue to win this one too, and the cover, I'm gonna go 80-70, so Purdue minus 9.5, under 151.5. The absence of Shannon is obviously major for Illinois. It's one of the biggest storylines in all of college basketball right now. I will see if the whole legal situation gets figured out and if he's able to return. But if not, this is a completely different Illinois team. And if I had to pick one Big Ten environment to have a home game at, it probably would be Purdue. I think that they're one of the best, not just in the Big Ten, but in the entire country in terms of their home court advantage. And as you said, Joe, Edey's playing super well right now, as we expected, and the guards have really developed throughout the offseason into the beginning part of this season as well. So I like Purdue to win this one. I'm going to take them to cover. I think Illinois gets a little bit shell-shocked in their first massive game without Shannon in the lineup. All right, we go to Saturday now. We have an ACC matchup to start us off at noon on ESPN2. Got number 8 North Carolina at 10-3 at number 16 Clemson, who's 11-2. Clemson projected to win this one on Haslam, 81-78. So we're going to go Clemson minus 2.5 in the over/under of 158.5. UNC coming off a big win this week at Pitt. Clemson losing at Miami. Is Clemson able to figure things out at home this week, Joe?
yeah, I think this is going to be a bounce back here. I expect Little John. This is kind of going to be my theme of the day. Little John is going to be rocking, especially too, Coyle, like we say, kind of with the SEC football. If Bama's coming to town, it's the biggest game of the season. In the ACC, no matter how good or how bad UNC or Duke are, if they're coming to you, it's the biggest game of the season. This is going to be a sellout crowd. You're going to see all the Clemson football fans root for the basketball team for one day. But also, Clemson basketball is really, really good this year. Like I always say, fun fact, the only original ACC team to never win the ACC title. I think this could be the year that they get it done. I really like Clemson, Coyle. I know you love Clemson in the ACC. I'm going Clemson. I think this is going to be a game that comes down to the very last possession. I have Clemson 83, UNC 82. So I'll take UNC to cover that spread. I am going over 158.5.
Yeah, I was kind of weird at the end where I wound up flipping this game. Originally, I thought Clemson with the home game. I thought that they were going to be able to get this one done. I'm actually going to go North Carolina in this one. And if North Carolina wins this one, I know Clemson's probably, at the end of the day, I think they're going to be like a 5 or a 6 seed. If they're able to win this game, Clemson's really going to move up, or excuse me, UNC is going to move up into that kind of elite tier with me up there with like the Purdue's. I mean, outside of Purdue right now, we've seen Arizona struggling. We've seen UConn slip up a couple times. There needs to be a couple more teams right there behind Purdue in that elite national title type tier. If UNC is able to go on the road and win a game against a very good Clemson team, I'll be very impressed. I was really impressed by them watching them against Pitt because they were able to slow it down and win one of those rock fight type games. Normally, North Carolina, when they're winning games, they're getting up and down the floor and they're outscoring you, in the 80s and in the high 70s. I think this is a team that is versatile enough to win at both rates, whether it's in the half court or in transition. And I think they're going to show that again this week. Clemson has been pretty well known under Brad Brownell to be a team that starts out hot and then fade a little bit once they get into conference play. I think we see that again here. I still like this Clemson team going forward, but I'm a really big fan of this North Carolina team, and I think they're going to get this road win. So I'm going to go North Carolina 80, Clemson 75, so UNC plus 2.5 in the under of 158.5 hitting there. All right, now we go to one where this is the highest scoring projected game of the day on our sheet. Number 6, Kentucky traveling to Florida. Kentucky at 10-2, Florida at 10-3. 12:30 tip-off on ESPN. Florida projected to win this one 88-87. So we're going to set this at Florida minus 1.5, over under all the way up at 174.5. Joe, will the swamp make a difference in this game?
Yes, kind of like what I was just saying with the last game with Clemson UNC. Kentucky is the biggest school in the SEC. Whenever they come to town, it's normally that team's biggest home game of the season. Florida, the one thing about Florida, too, they do have a lot of basketball fans from when they went on their run in the mid-2000s. They were in the Final Four in 2014 when they lost to UConn. So Florida does have – there are Florida basketball fans. Florida, because the SEC, they all think kind of like they're football schools. Florida, I think you can make the argument that it might be a little bit of both. I think the crowd is going to be amazing, just like I was saying with the Clemson game. But Florida's also a pretty good team. I mean, they're 10-3. I haven't watched a lot of Florida. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and go in depth. But the one thing about college basketball is, whenever a ranked team has to go on the road in conference, especially one of the big boys, it's not like, South Carolina is number 6 in the country out of nowhere, and they're going to Florida. This is Kentucky being one of the best teams. Florida can play spoiler and really shoot themselves into a solidified, tournament position, as we're already 2 months away from March, which is crazy. We're already in January. Happy New Year, everybody, by the way. Give me the Gators.
Yeah, Joe, it's too far past to wish anyone a Happy New Year,
Yeah, I thought today was the last day.
says Larry David. No, I believe it was yesterday.
That's a shame. Well, I'm sorry, Larry David. That's on me.
Yep. So, but I'm with you. I like Florida in this one too. Another game, kind of like Butler. I mean, I know you were just referencing Clemson, but I'm going a little bit of the unranked route here, where Florida is in need of like that resume win, and you get a big time quad one win here against Kentucky, who probably the best Kentucky team that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years. That'd be a huge one, and the second year of a head coach there in Todd Golden. That's like the program building win that gets really everyone, not just in the program, but around the program, juiced up. This is it's fun to watch big time basketball games at Florida, like when they have all like the pom pom things.
Yes.
Like it's one of those games where you're just watching on TV. It looks like a cool environment, and you're like, wow, I wish I was there for that game. And I think this is one of those games where we kind of see that come back to life, and Florida starts to emerge again. This would be a really fun game to watch, something I'm looking forward to. And I think Florida is going to be able to outlast Kentucky in a really high scored matchup. I'm going to go Florida 90, Kentucky 86. So we're going to go Florida minus the 1.5 and the over of 174.5 hitting there. All right, we go to the Big 12 now with another unranked team playing at a ranked team. We go TCU at 11-2. We've already talked about them and their lack of strength of schedule in the non-con. They're going to the Big 12 King in number 2 Kansas at 12-1. 2 o'clock tip on CBS. Kansas projected to win 76-71. So we go Kansas minus 4.5 and over under 146.5. Joe, will Kansas get it done at home?
Oh, yeah. I think they're going to win fairly easily as well. I have Kansas 78, TCU 69. Kansas minus the 4.5. Going with the over 146.5. I believe I have it by the hook when I did my math. I think I had 147 on my prediction. But Coyle, we've been talking about TCU already. They're 11-2, but don't let their record fool you. I mean, their 2 losses are to Clemson and Nevada. Nevada, like both very good teams when I say that, but like TCU needs a 1-point win against Georgetown. They're playing in the 3rd place game in the Hawaiian Airlines Diamond Head Classic. I think that kind of just tells you all you need to know about TCU. I think they're going to be exposed really quickly. Playing on New Year's Day, though, was kind of smart, getting one more non-conference game in there. But their first 4 games of the season, at Kansas, home against number 11 Oklahoma, home against number 3 Houston. Then they go to an 11-2 Cincinnati team. So very, very quickly, TCU could be staring down the barrel of an 0-4 conference record. And their non-conference games did not do them any favors. This isn't like, Oklahoma last year when they were like 12-14. But, if they're still on the bubble because of how good the Big 12 is, no, their non-conference did them no favors. TCU needs to go at least 500 in the Big 12 if they want to, make a tournament spot, in my opinion. I'm really not high on this TCU team. Give me Kansas pretty convincingly. I know Coyle last Saturday, we did our show. I thought Wichita State was going to be able to cover. They did not. And Kansas dominated that game. Give me the Jayhawks.
Yeah, keep this one short and sweet, Joe. I mean, there's 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and Bill Self winning at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I think Kansas wins here. I think they cover, and like you said, TCU could see their season really start to spiral down with now in Big 12 play and after playing a very terrible non-conference schedule. It could be a team that, who knows, finishes with like a 23-8 record or something like that, but they're on the outside looking in because all they did was beat the bottom tier teams in the Big 12 and then just have a bunch of stacked up non-conference wins against some really crappy teams. So going to be interested to see if TCU is able to pull off some magic in the league, but I think it's a Kansas team that's going to find a way to win again at home. I'll have them win and cover 80-75, so Kansas minus 4.5, and the over of 146.5 hitting there. All right, we go to the Big East now. Number 23, Providence, who's 11-3, just lost their arguably best player today, and Bryce Hopkins, to a season-ending knee injury, devastating there for a Providence team that looked like to have a lot of promise. They're going to Creighton to play the 10-4 Blue Jays. 2:00 tip on FS1. Creighton projected to win 72-62, so we'll go Creighton minus 9.5 and over under 133.5.
Yeah, Coyle, you said it best. I'll keep this one pretty short. Although Creighton is kind of being exposed as overrated, I think they're going to be able to win this game pretty convincingly. You have an injury like that. I think this is their first game without him, correct? He got hurt yesterday or 2 days ago, maybe?
He got hurt during the game last night.
Yes, okay. I thought it was yesterday. But first game without him, it's tough. And you got to go to Creighton, which we alluded to it last time we had the show, Coyle. Creighton, whenever they're at home, another very good environment. But the one advantage that Creighton has in the Big East, I'll say this really quick, is their travel. You're going from Providence, Rhode Island, all the way to Omaha, Nebraska. It's not like it's a hop, skip, and a jump. But I'll take Creighton at home, desperately needing a win. Even though Providence is going to probably fall off, right now Providence still has that number next to their name. You can get a win against a top 25 opponent. You can rally around that at this point in the season. Give me the Blue Jays. 70-59. I don't know if I said the score, by the way. So I'll take Creighton to cover and then over 133.5.
Not quite, Joe. Under.
Dude, I almost said a really bad word on this recording. Yeah, no, that equals 129. So I'm going under. I'm going under 133.5.
I'm going to go Creighton as well to win and to cover. I'm going to go 75-65, so Creighton minus 9.5 and over 133.5. I just think the loss of Hopkins is going to be too much. Creighton 0-2, I believe, right now in the Big East. They're in desperate need of a win, and especially since they lost to Villanova at home, they can't sacrifice another loss there. I think this is a game where we see Creighton kind of right the ship, get back on their feet a little bit, and we see Providence in their first full game without Hopkins. They're going to have to adjust, and I don't think going to Creighton's the one that you want. Like if they had DePaul or Georgetown come into town this game, that would be much better, as they would have the chance to acclimate themselves a little bit more against an inferior opponent, but they don't have that luxury. I think Creighton's going to take care of them in this game and cover the spread. We go to the SEC now. I'm low-key looking forward to this game the most. I think the SEC actually the most this weekend with the Kentucky-Florida, and now this game with Auburn at ranked number 25 at 11-2, at Arkansas 9-4, a 2:00 tip on ESPN2. I'm expecting this one to be a real back-and-forth high-scoring game. Auburn projected to win 83-72, so we'll go Auburn minus 10.5 over under 154.5. Joe, do you think Arkansas can get the big win at home here?
I don't. I think this is going to be one of those weird games. Like I like Auburn 74, Arkansas 73. I think it's going to be a 1-point game. Definitely going to take Arkansas to cover if that's the spread, though. And I'm going with the under 154.5. I know that's correct there. I couldn't be that bad. This is an Auburn team. When you look, they have a loss against a neutral, at a neutral court against Baylor. And then they have a weird loss, but at App State. Not a lot of Power 5 teams are scheduling games like that. Not really giving them a pass or anything, but a team with not a lot of bad losses. Maybe not the best schedule so far, but I think they're going to be able to get this one on the road because Arkansas – haven't watched a lot of them since they beat Duke, but not a lot of rhyme or reason in this game. I just going with my gut here, picking Auburn.
I'm going to go Arkansas at home. Another team where one of the more cool home environments in college basketball, their fans really get up for their games. Auburn, though, is flying under the radar a little bit. I think you touched on them, but it's an Auburn team I'm looking to make some noise this year. only at number 25 in the polls. I'm a little bit confused because they've shown the ability to go out there and really dominate some teams. But I think this is going to be a fun back and forth, high scoring one, and it could be a game that comes down to free throws at the end or something like that, or whoever has the ball last and a chance to go win it. I think this might be the best game on Saturday. It might not be the most appealing on paper, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think Arkansas is gonna bring it in this one and get the big time home win. Auburn, a much different team away from home, so I'm gonna go Arkansas 80, Auburn 77. So Arkansas plus 10.5. I doubt when the actual line comes out that it's that high with Arkansas at home. I think it'll probably be more of like a 4.5, 5 point number. But I like Arkansas to cover if it is at 10.5, obviously. And I'm going to go with the over of 154.5 hitting there. All right, we stay in the SEC now. Number 22, Ole Miss at 13-0. Traveling to number 5, Tennessee, who's 10-3, 6 o'clock tip on the SEC Network. Joe, at your favorite arena in college hoops, Thompson Bowling Arena. Tennessee projected to win another one where I would be very surprised to see if the number is this big, but 78-63. So Tennessee minus 14.5 over under 140.5. Joe, can the Rebels continue their undefeated season at your Thompson Bowling Arena?
No, I think Ole Miss is another team. We were talking about TCU earlier, Ole Miss being 13-0, which is awesome because Ole Miss basketball normally isn't, in that kind of 13-0 start status. I think they're going to lose 71-60. I'm going to definitely, if Ole Miss is plus 14.5, that's one of those, like, I will get my parents to sell the house and put all the money on that. And I'm going to go under 140.5. This is Ole Miss team. When you look at their schedule, like, I don't really know what to think about them. Like, the month of December, win against Memphis. Memphis is a really good basketball team. Went on the road and beat UCF, Power 5 team. Only by 2, though. Then you look at November, though. They only have a 1-point win against Detroit Mercy, who is one of the worst D1 teams that has been trotted out in years. They're 0-15. A really close win against Sam Houston. The 1-point win at Temple Coyle, that was very early in the season. That was the night before Thanksgiving, I believe. But I think Temple was your dog of the day that day, or Ole Miss was your lock of the week. It was one of the two.
Ole Miss was my lock of the day. They were winning by a lot the entire time. It's just like our Longwood Lancers last night.
That was bad. I took them plus 8.5 to be safe in a lay, and it only ended up covering by the hook. So that was crazy. But I don't really know what to think about this Ole Miss team. I think, not to use the cliche phrase, but this game is going to tell me a lot about Ole Miss for the remainder of the season. Because the one good thing with Ole Miss, they kind of get to ease in after this game. They get Florida at home, Vanderbilt at home, and they go to LSU, who doesn't look great. So, they can kind of right the ship there, and we'll see, how the rest of the season goes for them. The one good thing about being 13-0, even though it's against no one great, kind of like I was saying with TCU earlier, as long as they beat the teams they're supposed to beat, they could be like a 23-8, kind of like you were saying, Coyle, and sneak in probably with a 10 or an 11 seed. As long as, they don't really go off the rails in SEC play. They do look like a safe bet to make the tournament this year. But I think going to Thompson Bowling, wherever the hell. And Tennessee's not playing in the tournament right now, so they're free money. Once they get to the tournament, I will fade Tennessee completely. Give me the Volunteers, though, in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing with Tennessee. I'm going to have them not winning by as much as you. I'm going to have them winning only by 9, but still Ole Miss cover in the 14.5. I'm going to go Tennessee 74, Ole Miss 65, under 140.5 hitting there. And like I said, Ole Miss plus 14.5. This is a spot where Ole Miss, I think, not their luck catches up to them, but they also haven't had the most daunting schedule, as you've touched on. But this is a team that's going to be reckoned with, and I think they're going to be in the tournament. Like, Chris Beard's that good of a coach. He's going to pick off some games that that they shouldn't win. They're not the most talented team, but he's a great coach, and I think he will protect home court. And at the end of the day, we'll see Ole Miss in the tournament. How high of a seed remains to be seen, but no one really goes to Thompson Bowling Arena and wins, Joe. So I will have Tennessee protect that, but I'd be very surprised to see if this number is anything more than like 9.5 points at the end of the day. But yeah, give me Tennessee to win that game. All right, 2 more games, one in the Big 12 and one in the Pac-12. Both of these games will be Big 12 games this time next year. But Texas Tech, 11-2, a team that admittedly I haven't seen this year. I haven't had a chance to watch them. So I'm interested to see because if I haven't seen them yet, they probably haven't played that many great non-conference games. They go to number 20 Texas, 11-2, 8 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Texas projected to win 72-71 narrowly. So we'll go Texas -1.5 and over under 142.5. Do the Longhorns protect home court here, Joe?
Yes, I actually got to watch Texas Tech once. They played Butler. It was the Big East Big 12 battle. My dad and I are watching a bunch of those games. But Coyle, like you were kind of saying, they had in November they played Nova in the bad boy in the Atlantis, thing. Then they played Northern Iowa and Michigan, who aren't great. Butler on the road, they lost that game, and they lost to Nova. Those are their 2 losses. Then the month of December, they only had 5 games, which is weird to begin with, but it was Omaha, Oral Roberts, Vanderbilt, UT Arlington, and Sam Houston. So not a lot of world beaters, going in and taking on Texas Tech. Like you, Coyle, besides that, I haven't really watched a lot of either of these 2 teams. Been slacking with my college basketball watching to start the season. Now that we're in conference play, I'm going all in. I'm going to go Texas at home here. Their last year in the Big 12, they're going to want to make a statement. I think Texas Tech, before Beard got fired, was turning into a very real. It already was a rivalry, but that could have been one of the great rivalries in the sport. So give me the Longhorns at home. I'm going to take them to cover the 1.5, and I'm going to go over 142.5.
I'll go Texas 70, Texas Tech 67. So Texas -1.5 in the under of 142.5. If you haven't watched Texas Tech this year, like we were touching on, not really watch them. I do know their coach came over from North Texas, and North Texas was one of the better defensive teams in the country last year. And I do remember actually seeing a few of their scores at the beginning of the season. He seemed to have implemented the same kind of slow down the pace, play some very good defense, and try to win like that system. So I do like the under in this game, but with Texas being at home, I'm going to take them to win. Not too much on this, as these are 2 teams I'm a little bit 4-2 right now, but Big 12, they're going to be on TV pretty much every night the rest of the way. So have a lot of more eyes on them going forward. I'll go Texas 70, Texas Tech 67. So Texas -1.5 in the under of 142.5. All right, last and final game of the night. Probably one that none of us are going to be able to tune into, but still a very important game at the end of the day. Utah at number 10 Arizona, 8 o'clock tip on the Pac-12 network. Both these teams playing tonight, I believe. I know at least Arizona plays Colorado tonight, and I want to say Utah is playing Arizona State. But so both these teams, their record not reflected in the picks today, but Arizona projected to win 88-77. So Arizona -10.5 over under 154.5. Joe, hit us with this one quick before we get out of here.
I'm going to go Arizona 88, Utah 74. I'm going to go. I wrote Utah -10.5. That would be crazy, and it would be wrong either way. So I'm going to take Arizona -10.5 over. Right? Yeah, over 154. Coyle, I'm all in my head now because I'm getting math wrong.
No, that's under.
80 plus 70 is
Oh,
140.
yeah, you got it.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
I'm just
All
trying
right.
to mess with you.
They don't teach you math when you become an occupational therapist. That's the big problem. But I'm going also, by the way, over tonight against Colorado. That's at 159.5. I think Arizona. That's the beef play. Good. I'm on it. So, anyways, I'll keep this quick. Arizona getting blown out by Stanford. Kind of throw that one out. They're going to kind of bounce back this week. I think they're going to crush Colorado, and I think they're going to crush Utah. So one thing I kind of like about the Pac-12 schedule, by the way, it's like one weekend you're at home, the next weekend you're on the road. I don't know. It's the little things that I enjoy. And once again, I cannot wait to get rid of the Pac-12 network. That is all.
All right, I'll go Arizona 84, Utah 80. This is a pretty solid Utah team, actually. I expect them by March to be a tournament squad. I think they're going to put up a good fight in this one. Arizona's really struggled on the defensive end. That was the main reason why I had that over in this Colorado game tonight. In 4 of their last 5 games, Arizona has given up 90 or more points. I know the one game was double overtime against FAU. So even if you take that one out where they gave up over 100, they still 5 games, they've given up over 90 points. So a team that's not playing much defense right now, and with their pace of play, they get up and down the court just about as quick as anyone in the country. So I really like the over of 154.5. But I do think Utah's a good squad, and with Arizona's struggles on the defensive end right now, I think they're going to be able to keep this one close, but Arizona wins it at home 84-80. So Utah plus 10.5 over 154.5. And that'll do it for another week here on the Beef Up Front podcast, college basketball show, plus our national title preview for college football on Monday night. Any last second comments, Joe, before we head out?
Like Tulsa plus 9.5 tonight against Memphis. I'm not saying they're going to win the game. Just Memphis having to go to Tulsa on a Thursday night. I remember back when UConn was in the American, that was like death playing in front of like a 60% empty arena. Tulsa actually a decent team this year. I'm not trying to, talk smack on Tulsa, but I like that 9.5. Could see Memphis kind of win the game a little closer than 9 points or less. But great show, Coyle. Thank you once again for having me on, though.
Yeah, and I'm on Memphis minus 9.5. So make sure to take my pick and fade yours. All right, that will do it for another episode here of the Beef Up Front podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will talk to you next week.